Hi, and welcome back to Beyond the First Response. I'm Christy, and I'm here with my new co host, Ciara. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Christy?
Good. We don't have a guest today, purposefully, because we've been having a lot of conversations about how people deal with grief differently, or frustrations, or being able to set boundaries and overcome things.
Yeah, and how they handle just the stressors of everyday life and what we know our tools and how we get to go forward with those.
Right. And so we're hoping, well, everybody knows what we're doing beyond the first response to begin with. And it's important that will always be in our main focus, but giving tools is one of our main focuses. And we learn from everybody that we talk to.
Yeah, you constantly learn, even when you don't talk to somebody, you learn through your actions and your daily ins and outs. And
Yeah.
that's how you grow.
It is. So before we got on air, we were talking. I was at, and I'm not going to name the conference or anything like that, but I was recently at a conference, and one of the sponsors was giving a 5 minute advertisement. We'll say, right?
Right.
And we're talking, and this is a sponsor that does some training for very important things. Again, I don't want to call them out on here, so I'm being very minimal in what I'm saying. But they mentioned that there was a sheriff that died by his own gun, shot himself. This sheriff shot himself, and but it's not suicide.
No. Oh, no.
No, no,
That's
not at all.
that's
Those were
that's
the words, but
yeah.
it's not suicide.
Mm-mm. Yeah, that's that whole not changing the mindset when
Right.
you're supposed to be training to change the mindset, to change the way the world is. But
And this was a mental health first responder conference type conference, for first responders. And I was up next to talk. And during my conversation that I have, I'm like, and I want to bring up, the sheriff that didn't die by suicide or that shot himself, but it's not suicide. I go, folks, that's suicide.
yeah,
And that's not okay. And we have to keep bringing that conversation in. It's uncomfortable to talk about. It always will be because that's what society has made it.
yeah,
Maybe
oh
if
yeah,
if saying that word wasn't so scary, being able to open up and be vulnerable wouldn't be as scary either.
right. And that's like I think I came up with this. I don't know. I just not my slogan because it's just horrible words to say, but like I always end things when I'm talking with, it is much easier to talk about suicide and keep it on the table. And who cares if it makes you feel uncomfortable? It is so much easier than burying somebody due
Yep.
to suicide. Like,
Yep.
talk about it, be uncomfortable because I promise you, you you do not want to ever have to bury somebody because of suicide because it's not like any other grief. I just talked with my therapist about it. If there's no grief that can even touch a suicide grief. So
No, no. And in that room, that big elephant in the room,
yeah,
suicide, that word,
yeah,
um, realistically, I read this the other day. I should have pulled it up. It's like 1 in 4 people have contemplated suicide, attempted suicide, or have the ideations of suicide. 1 in 4. That's like you
yeah,
sitting down at the dinner table with your family,
right, exactly.
you
And I
know?
mean, yeah, as you know, in your family and in my family, like it's there, and
Right.
I never thought it would be there, but then all of a
No.
sudden it is. That big elephant in the room is now sitting at my dinner table, and we now talk about it all the time.
Yeah. And it doesn't want to eat with a fork. It just wants to grab and go.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just I'm gonna throw it all in my face and then
Yeah.
run off, and I
And
might come back in a
run
few
away and
minutes.
hide in the corner.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the reason we're talking about that, because everybody grieves differently, everybody processes differently. Um, whether it be trauma, whether it be the events that our first responders see, our families see, um, everyday people see, it doesn't matter. We're all gonna internalize that moment differently. And that's okay. It doesn't make it any less important, doesn't make it any more important. What's important is when you get in that dark, depressed, dark cycle of I don't, nobody understands.
Right.
Yeah, they're not in your shoes, but they have very similar shoes and they do understand. And they're also working to maintain trying on a new pair.
Right. And that's like when you have to realize yourself, like it is okay to be vulnerable because and I think that that is like a lot of, not, I don't want to say people are controlling because humans have a nature of being a little bit controlling, especially when it comes to themselves. But you have to be vulnerable to like say, okay, I'm struggling. I need help. Okay, this was a really crappy situation and I'm struggling to get through it. I know you don't know it, but this is how I'm feeling. Like it's all vulnerable and it's letting yourself, I don't know, like not that you don't feel, but like it's letting yourself like fully feel and realizing that you got that.
You know what's interesting? I love you said eh, humans like to control. Can and there's a difference between control because it's if it's control, it's going to control your life. And
Oh
there's
yeah,
boundaries and understanding that if you feel like you need control, that's something you're struggling with.
right,
If it's boundaries, that boundary is set, you're not controlling it. This is just where it will be. It will
yep,
be I will meet you on Monday at 5. That is the time that I have for you. I cannot control if you don't want to be there, but this is the time and place that I have because I need to give other time for myself, here, there, whatever that looks like, not letting somebody else's need of time, etc., take over because we all have
right.
life gets in the way.
Oh yeah,
But I think, and this is a huge thing that I do struggle with is time management because I'm always busy. I just always have been a lot of times. Before it was because I didn't want to sit in my own thoughts, right? And I've learned
right,
that since Ken died. Um, that I was sitting in my own thoughts. And by not sitting idle, then it keeps it away. It doesn't keep it away. It just pushes it down.
right.
And I'm working
And
really
we just
hard.
talked about that
Yeah.
too.
And I'm
Too
working really
also.
hard on that, learning to let that part go and be open up. And then I think I'm doing good. And then someone in my life will be like, well, I don't know that you're really present. I'm like, aren't I? I thought I was. Am I
Right?
not? Holy crap. Because you're working so
Yeah,
hard to overcome that one that you think, oh, I've done it, but there's more to go.
right. Because it's like we were talking before, just like it's an ever growing and changing thing. Because as you heal from your trauma or grief or whatever it is, you're constantly evolving and you're constantly having to change your flow, so to speak.
Right.
And like we talked about with like what I went through last week, like I totally was like, I was ready to shut down. Like I was ready to go back to my old coping skills, like grab me a bottle of wine, sit in the bathtub, nobody talk to me, nobody even look at me. And like one of my things was for control was I wouldn't eat because that was the only thing I had control over after Matt died was food. I couldn't
Right.
control anything else in my life. So I controlled food and I just wouldn't eat. And I was like, I'm not even gonna cook dinner and make dinner tonight. And then I was like, wait, no, 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 like I had to have like this mental talk with myself and I ended up going to the gym, which is like really big for me because that's my mental health. Like you need to check yourself, Ciara,
Yeah.
because when you go to the gym, it wakes you, it like it does something for you. People are like, oh no, it doesn't do anything. Like I don't feel better after the gym, but then you really do. Like you
You
just
do.
don't realize it. You
It gets
really do.
everything in your body flowing,
Hmm.
which then your serotonin, right?
Yeah,
It's been a
your
day. Sorry,
serotonin levels.
folks.
No, yeah. It's Wednesday. It's
And it's
like middle of
Wednesday.
the
It's
week.
hump day.
Hump day. Mike.
Right. And I thought for sure that it was Monday based on the way my work computer was working for me today and my ability for technology. So, but we got it rocking and rolling. No,
That's
it
right.
is. It gets your whole body moving when you sit idle. Not only is your body sitting idle, but your mind is sitting idle. And
Yep.
then you can't get out of it. And the ability to recognize that you needed to get up and go to the gym, that's traumatic growth. And
Yep.
that's traumatic growth is really learning from, growing stronger from a trauma. and reinventing how you cope with things or learning new tools to cope with things.
Right. And it's like, it's when, when Matt passed away, and that's what got me into First Help is I always said, if I could just help one person along my way, I've done my job
Right.
as going through my grief. And then when I was doing my therapy with my therapist, I was like, the one person is me. So I've done more than I ever thought I would do on top of helping myself. I've helped my children in different ways, because their
Yeah.
grief is different than mine. I've
Yes.
helped Matt's kids, through their different parts of their grief. And, like Matt's daughter, especially, she was there with me, that night. And then just other people, first responders I've had conversations with, the people I've met through First Help,
Yes.
we all have our different ways, but then it's like my main goal was one person, and I helped that person. And then now I just want to, I don't know, sprinkle the love, and it sounds like super hippie, like granola, like sprinkle the love and all this everywhere. But that's,
Glitter. I'm
yeah,
not a glitter person. I don't know why that came out of my mouth.
because that's what you like picture it as, right? Like you want to spread the light and
Yeah. You want other people to see that healing can happen. Nothing goes away,
no.
but
Mm-mm.
healing happens by having these tools to move forward, to be able to smile and take in the moments of how green it is out. I'm looking outside right now. That's why I'm saying that. How green the grass is outside today.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing to remember and to notice,
Yeah.
because life still moves on, and humans are humans. They will come and go in your life, but the one constant in your life is you. That's
Hmm.
the only thing. And now I don't even want to say control because I'm like, that's the only thing you have control of. But we were just discussing control can have different things, but that's the one thing you can set boundaries to build yourself up.
Right. And then you also protect yourself. Like you build yourself up and you protect yourself.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that. Protecting yourself does not mean wearing an armored vest so you don't have to feel.
Right. You can't do that.
Understand? No, that's not protecting yourself. That's hiding from yourself.
Hmm.
It's you're protecting yourself by setting those boundaries and growing and knowing that you're doing the best that you can do, and realizing that you're doing the best that you can do, because whatever we were doing at that time in our life, we were doing what we thought was best. Like for my kids, they tell me I was disconnected. I was always there, but they're right, I was disconnected. I didn't realize it. I just couldn't be fully present because I was so worried. I was carrying this vest of protection for them that I didn't want them to see any pain or anything, that I was the one that was disconnected.
Right.
And
Yep.
that's a hard pill to swallow,
Hmm.
because I didn't think I mean, consciously, I didn't think I was. Subconsciously,
Yeah.
obviously, it's blatantly obvious that I was connected. I was told you're not really a touchy feely person. I'm like, but that's not really true.
Right. Yeah.
But if I'm working through something, I'm not. If something's bothering me, I'm not. And it might not have anything to do with you. You just happen to be that person right there. And I don't want to talk about it, or I need to find the right time to talk about it so it doesn't come across harsh,
Right.
or like it's you, because anybody that reacts in a bad way towards you, it has something 9 times out of 10. If they're reacting to some normal thing, it's usually because they have something going on inside them, and you just happen to be the vessel that it hit.
Right. But then like we go back to boundaries. Like I have learned that like when I'm having a bad day or I'm in my head and I can't get out and it's affecting me, like I set that boundary. And even Danica at 12 years old knows today, this is my boundary. You cannot cross it. Nobody's going to cross it. This is my boundary. So we can still function and maintain a sane household. And even Ryan, like he'll get a text like, today's not a good day. And he comes in and it's not even a tippy toe. It just is like, he knows I need my space and I will talk when I want to talk. Otherwise, I have this boundary
So
and it's healthy.
you gave that tool and started practicing it with them. That's huge. And they get
Yeah.
it. I'm still
Hmm.
working on that. So brutal honesty. So you guys will be listening to this after my daughter graduates, which is this Saturday. I was not sure we were going to get there, and that has been eating me alive because she started blowing school off. I don't have to go every day. Well, you do. You actually do. That's a law.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's not just my rules.
Yeah, it's not just mine, but the school, she was doing this for a long time, ditching her study hall. She just felt like she didn't have to be there. And supposedly she was in the library, but fact of the matter is, I know she was not 90% of the time. Now
Right.
knowing what, now shame on me. I'm at work, not paying attention to the time. So I didn't know she was coming home because I was not working from home anymore. She would come home. Well, one day I questioned, hey, have you talked to the social worker? And she's like, well, I haven't seen her. I'm like, what? She's a 504 plan, meaning that I've written in there that she
Right.
needs to do check-ins, like buddy checks every week.
Yep.
And this is a counselor that it's been a nightmare the past 2 years. Well, I come to find out, she goes, well, I've been sending the passes down and they come back that she's absent. Don't you think that should have been something you told me?
Right.
I said, you were taking a child. I go, I'm trying to work with you guys. And you
Right.
guys are taking a child who already feels unseen and invisible, not only because of what happened, losing her dad, but because she struggles. And you just showed her by not following up or checking in properly,
Right.
that she's invisible.
Yeah.
So
That she's just another number on a spreadsheet.
Yeah. I got files like this. Yeah, that's called your job.
Yeah.
If
Right.
I didn't go through my files for my job, I'd be fired.
Right. Exactly.
And this social worker's like, I'm not going to take blame for this. I'm like, well, actually, you are.
Yes.
Because you're not really following that 504 plan if you have not informed me that she's not in school. Because do you not think that I have a clue? I had no idea she wasn't in school. I would left her in your guys' charge and you have no idea. Well, we thought that she was somewhere in the building. Awesome answer.
Yeah, right.
Awesome answer.
And I hate to say it like this, but like she just played the victim and did not do her job and blamed somebody else for her error. Like that's being a victim. That's being there's many ways to be a victim, as we know.
Right.
But that one is like, and you work with children. You
Right.
work
Scary,
with kids,
right?
like,
Well,
and kids that need you, like they
right.
need you.
And I made that blatantly clear when this new social worker, the first 2 years was great social worker. Then this one started. And that's when the problem started.
Yeah.
Because, well, she says she's good. I'm like, I'm going to let you know. Anybody who tells you they're good, maybe you should go back to school. Because if somebody tells you they're good, they're lying to you.
Right.
Teenager or not. I'm good.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
I'm perfect. I'm great. Yeah, exactly.
The dean, I actually looked at him. He goes, well, on the phone, he's like, well, what do you want me to do? Punish her if she's not there? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And when I was in that 504 meeting, he said something. I'm like, look, if you're doing your fucking job, you would know or what her file looked like. You chose not to look at it.
Right.
And exactly. I'm like, well, I just said fucking school. Am I going to be sent to the principal? Well, no, because they don't have any accountability. So they won't even kick me out of school.
Right. I know when it really is. I am grateful for my son's school where he was at, and that's a whole backstory. But he's doing really good now. But we pulled him out. But when we were going through the 504, he had 2 teachers that fully wanted him on a full 504 plan, and then he had 2 teachers that were like, absolutely not. And I was pissed at first. I was like, why? Like, he needs this help. Like, he needs the extra help.
Right.
And they said, because he's fully capable of it. We just need to be better teachers and do a check-in with him.
You gave me goosebumps.
I know. I was like, I wrote them after and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you guys, I'm crying. Like,
yeah.
Thank you for being the teachers that we need. Like, thank you. You didn't sit there and pass him off and give him this label. Not that it's a label, but like automatically just, here, let's put this in the file and send him on his way and just not even pay attention. It was, let's just check in with him. Let's just say, hey, buddy, you know, your head's not being picked up today. You don't need he didn't need a 504 because he has manic depressive disorder. Like he needed just an extra
He needed
hand.
somebody to notice that he was
Yes.
not himself today.
Yep.
He needed
And
that buddy check.
oh yeah, and those teachers were amazing. And even after like he left the school, they've contacted me like just checking to see if Tanner's doing okay. And it's really cool. Like there is good teachers. There is good
There
social
is.
workers out there. There's good
Yes,
deans,
there
there's
is.
good principals, there's good teachers, 100%, but we live in a different world nowadays. So
We do. And since COVID, they're overwhelmed. I get it. And I told them, I'm like, I understand you're overwhelmed with your job. I'm overwhelmed as a parent too, but I'm trying to communicate and do what's best for my daughter. Much
yep.
like is your job to do. And I don't know how so she skipped 3 days of school this past weekend. I don't know if she was going to graduate or not. So I sent them an email and I'm like, so I'm just letting you know as you see that Haley is not there again since I got the truancy call again. If you could let me know, I go, obviously, my parental consequences mean nothing since the school's consequences don't exist.
Right. They're
Can
not in line.
just let me know. Can you let me know so that I can deal with whatever it is that will be dropped if she's not going to graduate? And they're like, well, we'll have to check and see if she shows up. Hmm. Okay. Well,
Okay.
she did. And then they emailed me. I'm surprised they don't text me all the time. They emailed me, well, it looks like her grades are passing, so she will graduate. And the dean actually said, well, if you did not call her in, it's unexcused. I already told you I'm not calling her in anymore because I
Right.
would call her in periodically when I knew she was blowing off when she couldn't get out of bed. I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore because that's not okay.
Right.
She needs to face consequences. Give her detention, suspend her, whatever that looks like. I know it's more work for you guys to write that piece of paper down,
Right.
but you may save her life by doing that.
Right. Exactly. Because it's also like accountability for her. And like and as parents, we all, I mean, it doesn't matter how old your kids are, like you want to fix them. Like
Right.
you want to fix them. And there's just some things you can't fix. They have to fix it themselves. So like you made her accountable when she was having a bad day that she still has to get up
Yeah.
and go to school. And yes, she blew it off. I mean, Tanner did too. Like
And the
that's
school
why.
didn't do a damn thing about it.
Right.
That's
And
what
they didn't do.
irritates me.
And it's so hard to parent. I mean, it's like when your kids are in like a public school, and I guess any school, you're co-parenting with, you know, 6 teachers essentially when they're in
Mhm.
junior high school and high school. Um, and then you got a principal and a dean if they're getting in trouble, because I know too, Tanner was getting in trouble. We were getting the calls. And if they're not backing you when you're like trying to be this stable parent, it's like, oh, really? Are you
They're the
kidding
Disney
me?
parent from a
Yes,
broken
yes,
marriage.
yes. Go to Disneyland for the weekend.
Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll buy mouse ears, put them on my head, and wear them to her graduation, and then go up to the dean and say, here you go. These are for you, Disney
Right.
Dad.
Yes.
Thank you, Disney
Thank
Dad.
you. Thank you for helping all
Yeah.
this time.
Am I
Thanks.
going to get that support? Can I just go ahead and give you the counseling bills? Thank you.
Right.
Oh, you're not going
Right.
to pay those either, are you?
No, oh, okay. You're not
Yeah.
not even split.
I'm taking my ears back.
But it's all back to just like and we've talked before. Even talked with Dougie about it, just like how our society has changed.
Yep.
Mental health has come to a big forefront, but we're still so stuck in the ways of we're the victim
Yes.
and we're overwhelmed and it's not our job, it's your job, or there's this or this. There's so many excuses to
Right.
not move forward and better, because I think I said it too with Dougie. Like when you're helping one person, you're essentially helping hundreds, if not
Yes.
thousands. Because
Yes.
when you change their life, they change their
And they
life.
and they may not come up to you and acknowledge that,
Oh no.
but you are. Sometimes simply by just smiling and saying good morning or excuse me to somebody, that alone is something they needed in that moment.
Yep.
I have to I got this because I was at my camper over the weekend for Mother's Day, and then I came home and packed and went to the conference. And I had a friend. We're not like close friends, acquaintances. She's a realtor, and we talk periodically. But we've never hung out or anything. But we were having a conversation one day, and she mailed me this note saying, it's gonna make me cry. I should have had it up here. Oh, I didn't think I didn't even talk about it. But basically, she goes, "We need more strong people like you. So don't ever think that you're not making a difference, because you are. Just remember that."
Oh,
And I'm
that's
like,
amazing.
"Oh yeah." It's like something like that. I'm like, I bawled like a baby.
Because
Yeah,
you like when we do this and when we have like our meetings and we talk about what we want to see going forward, like we have these visions and we want all this stuff to happen. And then it organically technically does.
right.
And we don't see it come. But then when somebody tells us they see it and they've watched, and I had the same thing. I posted yesterday that yesterday was 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks until the day of Matt's passing. And this weekend, I'm doing a first help booth at our Out of the Darkness Suicide Prevention Walk. And I made a post about it. And I am not chalant at all. Like I tag all of the police departments up and
Good.
around here. I tag all the fire. I tag the state police. I tagged our governor because Joe Lombardo was Matt's friend and acquaintance and sheriff
Good.
at one point. And a friend commented, and I saw it this morning, and she said, "You never cease to amaze me. You matter." Yeah, there was more in there, but you never cease to amaze me and you matter. And I'm like, okay, thank you. But how do I not cease to amaze you? But then from an outsider looking in,
Because it takes balls to tag all of them and to put it in their face every day. So, what are you doing now that's going to make a difference? Are you changing something now? Are you going to do that now? What have you done for your department, let alone,
right,
the whole state?
right,
And,
right.
and they don't have answers. They don't
No,
have answers because they don't want to lose their job. Because if they speak up and say what they may or may not feel, maybe
mm,
they do feel they wish they could make change. They might be blowing smoke up your ass saying that to you right now. Maybe they
right,
don't because they're struggling. So if they admit and make change, then they have to do it too. And that's a lot. It's hard work dealing with what goes on the inside when you've
right.
spent
Because
years not processing.
right. And so you got your inside, and then now, and then, and I'm going to use our governor as an example. He spent years on the job, and then he worked his way up and he became sheriff, and now he's our governor. So if he was to admit, like, I have these issues, like, what is the trickle? What's the political trickle of it all? But
That
essentially,
sounds like a
too,
disease. I'm sorry.
right? It does. It really. After I said it, I was like,
Yeah.
ooh,
I,
um, I would never want that. Um, but at the same point in time, there has to be a mind flip of you have the huge opportunity to not just change Nevada, but change all the states,
right.
because you are a governor now and you were a sheriff and you had the training and seen the worst of the worst and the saddest of the saddest for all those years. It's okay to say, like, man, I've got some issues from that one thing, because I don't know a single cop, and you probably don't either, that can sit there and say, nope, I don't remember the worst one.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, you say that, but at the same time, they remember the one that had them stop feeling. That
Yep.
wasn't necessarily the worst one, but that
Hmm.
was the one when they decided not to bring back their emotion.
Yep.
There's always one. And even in like our lives, we all have one. And in first responder families, I I'm not going to acknowledge the one that I realized that there were some issues going on
Right.
in our marriage. This is kind of when I knew that I don't know that I can fight through this. He doesn't see what he's doing
Right.
to our family, the unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Right.
And then I, of course, had some unhealthy coping mechanisms because I too chose not to feel. I was like, I'm going to show people I got this crap.
Right.
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 But
But
that,
you have something, and I not don't want to interrupt you,
no,
but you have something that like I've literally talked with because I've been in talks with the Northern Nevada's peer support group. You have the I have to be the cop wife. You had that I have to be the cop wife mentality.
right.
I have to be big and strong for him to be able to go out and do his job. So he's got to hold it together. I've got to hold it together, which in all reality is bullshit
Right.
because
He's doing the job there. And this is where I always talk about we're actually invisibly next to them on their job.
right.
You know, his job is to go protect the community. Not that his job is not to also protect his family, because it is.
Right.
However, when the first responder is at work, your job at home is protecting your family. But you also have to decompress. You also have to communicate. And communication has been very hard for me. That's been the one really hard thing when it comes to my personal, like internally, how I'm
Right.
feeling communicating when I'm talking about. I'd be lying to you if I'd say, "Oh, it's so easy for me."
Oh yeah.
No, no, not at all. I mean, I'll talk to myself. I would probably look like a crazy lady driving, like, wow, I'm getting it out. I'm talking to myself. But what it is I'm not explaining how I'm feeling or why I'm feeling. And then all my loved ones around me think that there's something wrong with them.
Right. Yep.
There's not. I've gotten much better. So you think you're doing better, which I think I am. Like time management's a big thing for me because I don't want to sit. Now I'm working on that. I've done better on that. Well, I'm like, oh, look, I'm communicating. Well, no, because what I'm thinking isn't coming out of my mouth
Right.
necessarily.
Right. But
No,
then
I don't answer myself. If I did, then I would question.
what I answer myself. I talk to myself while driving and
I do
answer
too.
myself. You
I do
have
too.
to, because then like I feel like sometimes that's how I answer some of like my problems too, if
Right.
that makes sense. Like
It does.
because if you say something out loud, like I don't know if you've done this, but I'll like say something out loud and I'll literally laugh and be like, "You're an idiot, Ciara." Like come on, you can do this. Like,
Yeah.
and then it's like you flip your brain, you
Something
flip.
like that. Yeah. That's like thinking out loud, solving the problem out loud. That's not, I'm playing with business cards. Sorry. As you see them in the need a loan, call me now. I didn't mean to do that. But it's like solving it's like working outside the box to see what's inside.
Yes.
And that's different. It can be very helpful.
Yeah.
But I think I'm afraid that if I start talking, and I think this is maybe this is going to be our next episode, but I want to allude to it because then we'll bring somebody on. We'll find somebody to bring on.
Okay.
So anybody who's listening that wants to be that guinea pig, let me know.
Yeah.
But what it is, after you lose somebody that you love, after yes, my marriage was over, but finding trust in a relationship, moving forward in a relationship, I was still had children with Ken.
Mm.
And in that aspect, I still loved him. I couldn't be with him. And I was okay with that because I wanted him to be happy. And maybe in my mind in that moment, I was the issue, which I know I'm not now. I know
Right.
that all that now. But in that moment, I'm like, well, maybe this person, he won't do that too. Maybe he'll be happy. He's going to find love. Someone's going to love my kids like their own. And that's all I wanted.
Right.
Happiness.
Yep.
That being said, I still had to work through finding a way for me to be happy because every time I gave that little bit, it was taken, right? The times that you date, people's like, what the heck am I doing? And it's usually that same mindset of I'm going to make them love me.
Right.
You can't make somebody love you when they don't love themselves. Or I'm going to show them that I'm worth loving, not make somebody love me. I'm going to show them that I'm worth loving. But you can't make somebody love you if they don't love themselves.
Right. Oh no.
Straightforward. Now I've moved past a lot of that. I'm very good on that path. But my past is still will always, everybody's will. This past will still always be with me. And I'm going to talk about it because it's important, because it sculpted who I was and why it took me so long. I'm 50, took me so long to find myself. I'm going to talk about it. And I make it very clear. This is who I am. This is what I'm not willing to give up. Join me if you want. But what I'm forgetting to do along the way is as I'm healing and feeling all this stuff, because you don't want to put it on somebody else to carry.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
what that I have to, that was like a for me right now. I mean, I knew that, but hearing myself say that out loud was like, because I don't want them to worry. And I don't want them
Right.
to think that because that's part of my past and I'm healing, I learned from my past. It
Right.
scares me, but I'm healing from it. And if I talk about it, then that layer that I'm working on letting go of that vest stays up, or it's just like that, like a scab that hangs
Right.
there and it kind of hurts and you just got to rip
Or
it off.
it's kind of zipped up or down.
Yeah.
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 You just got to unzip it and
Yeah. Rip it off like the
yeah.
Band-Aids. Keep it off.
Yes. And it's hard.
That's the part
Yeah.
I'm having trouble with. Then it makes it sound like I'm not necessarily communicating with them.
Right. And that doesn't, I mean, and like, because we're talking about just tools, it doesn't come from just grief and, the way we lost, Ken or Matt or any of us that have lost our first responders to suicide, or anybody that's lost anybody to suicide, anybody that's lost anybody, period. It can come from an ugly marriage. Like you
Yes.
could have trauma from an ugly marriage and
Childhood.
childhood trauma. There's so many different things that you can take in and work through and learn and grow and can, like I said before, like continuously grow. I know the kind of mom I want to be because of my childhood, and I was that mom. Like that is it's going to come out and sound very wrong, but it's not how I mean it. That is one gift Matt gave me, was I was so forced to heal and to get
Yes.
healthy.
That's a positive out of a negative.
Yes, it's
You
positive.
find
Yes.
that's traumatic growth. Because
Yes.
it doesn't feel like it when you're in that moment.
No, it hurts like hell.
Yeah. And you blame yourself and you whatever that looks like in the situation. But that right there is finding that positive out of a negative. And because negative happens every day in life. Imagine if people started talking more about the positives than the negatives.
Oh, yeah. I mean, imagine if just the news played only something positive for one night, just one night, how different our world could be. Like,
yep.
And that's why I don't watch the news.
I don't. I went for a long, long time not. I listen to it in the morning just because it's background noise. And if I start watching a show that I recorded, then I'm not getting ready and going to work. So that's what I listen to it for. And there are some good feel stories, but at the end of the day, traumatic growth.
Yes.
But I want to know what the significant other thinks from the other side, because I can say I feel like, because I'm afraid to talk, that it makes them feel like they're not enough, and that's not true.
I mean, and I will attest 100%. Ryan has said the same thing to me, like you don't do this or you don't do this, and then you just shut down. But it, like you said, like it's working, it's continuously growing. And while I do a lot better, like
right.
When we first started dating, he was like, you don't communicate. And I'm like, yes, I do. And then I'm like, whoa, you communicate way too much. Like, what is this? I don't know this. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And then it was like, okay, this is normal. Dare I say normal?
Thank you. And that's a difficult thing to realize, that that's normal. Is that my counselor's like, is that such a bad thing? I'm like, well, maybe the other shoe's going to drop. I don't know.
Yeah, right? Like, what is looming in the background? Because I don't understand this. And that it still is a learning process, like with him and I, because I went into our relationship full on, like, my fiance committed suicide, and I literally met him when I was spreading the ashes, and he was like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, so I don't want to have anything to do with you. Like I was so rude to him. Like,
Yeah.
and he was, and then we became friends, and then we started dating, and he's seen my growth. So like when I joke that he's my number one supporter, I know my kids are my supporters,
Yes.
especially Danica, but like he's the one that has been there and seen
You've allowed him
every
to see
yes,
everything.
I've allowed him to see the most broken pieces
Yes.
and then pick them back up. Like now, like he's like, you get up at 4 a.m., to go to the gym. And I'm like, but he doesn't complain about it. It's more like a tease. Like, you're
Yeah.
old now. You get up and go to the gym like the old people. And that's not even a bad thing because
That is so true. Get it done out of the way.
I cannot tell you how much I love going to the gym in the morning now. Like
Yeah.
when I have to go in the afternoon, I'm like, ugh, do I
I don't
even
get it
want to
done. That's
go?
been my problem. If I don't get up at 4 and go work out, go for a walk, now it just isn't happening because I'm busy.
Yeah.
And
And
then I feel
life,
guilty going to do something for myself because then it's going to take away from them. And then if it's taking away from them, then they think I don't want to be there. And really, I just need time to myself.
it's like this. Like you
Yeah.
feel like you're this.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's okay. I mean, that's that hamster wheel that you have work, home,
It's
and
life.
you. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's life. So balance. I'm trying the best that I can. And I did tell, so my boyfriend's name is Matt. And I know you might not
Yeah.
remember, but you met him. But he supports everything. He does all the first help stuff with me that he can.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Because I met him the first year and the second year.
yeah, yeah. So he's always there. But I don't know that he realized how intense of that mission because it grew, obviously. Me helping
Right.
more grew. And it's hard sometimes because you still feel like an outsider. I think that maybe sometimes they feel like an outsider because they haven't experienced that trauma
Right.
and they don't know how to feel or how to
Right.
be there and help you other than be there and stand
Just
next to you.
right. Just
But then you
presence.
feel isolated. And that's where one day I'll be able to say, here's how I overcame that.
Right.
Hopefully it won't
Yeah.
be him leaving, but here's how I
No.
overcame it. He left me. No, no,
No,
not at
that
all.
wouldn't
That's not.
happen.
No, it's learning. It's learning to communicate
Yeah.
and healthy. And that's not something I've ever had in my life, not in my family life growing up, not in any relationship that I had. And it
Mhm.
makes me extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think that is so like for me, like it became like my coping is following a pattern of relationships that stemmed from my childhood.
Yes.
And I love Matt. I miss Matt, but Matt was extremely unhealthy, and I was always the caretaker and wanted to fix. And
Yes.
that was my tool belt, and it wasn't a healthy tool belt, but I was literally my I forgot how my therapist said it, but she literally called me a first responder in the way of thinking I have to help everybody. I
Yes.
have to fix, I have to solve. And it did nothing but just destroy me because I didn't teach my kids healthy things. I
Right.
wasn't healthy. And um and I couldn't save Matt. Like and that was like a huge part of like overcoming through the grief of realizing is I couldn't have saved him. Like there was nothing I could have done.
That is my biggest regret, pain, hardest thing for me to get past is I taught my kids not to process.
Hmm.
And it's hard enough. So, yes, they're younger, and trying to teach them those tools now will make it easier for them and more successful for them. But as I'm trying to do that for the 50 years I've been living and I haven't had that, it's hard doing it on my own. And it's hard to remember to help them because it's hard for me to remember to process it, talk, be open.
Right.
It's okay if they don't like what you have to say. It has nothing to do with them. It's how you're feeling inside. You can
Right.
still love somebody and still be struggling with dealing with how to deal with something.
Yep.
But talk about it because then it's not going to sit there.
Yeah. it's not going to be that big elephant in the room that
No.
nobody wants to talk about, but everybody
Right.
can feel and see it.
Yeah. And it's okay to talk about suicide.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay to say you're having a bad day and set that boundary, let you decompress and talk about it later.
Yep.
But talk about it later.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, if there's, there's always the ifs with suicide, but like I feel like if we were to go back 20 years, like when Matt was still new on the force and he had gained some tools because he was a smart man and he worked his butt off, he did. And he saw, I mean, coming from Las Vegas, he saw some of the worst of the worst. He was undercover and he was homicide for 11 years. So he saw, and then, he was in homicide on October 1. So he had all this trauma, but he never did anything with it.
Right.
It just sat there and it ruined relationships for him.
And not just like intimate relationships,
Right.
personal friends and professional relationships.
Right. And I think like he was very humorous. And I think that was his coping skill. Like he had to make a joke about something to get past it. But then I remember after he retired, he never ever spoke of October 1 to me, like never. He had told me like things that happened afterwards, but not like the actual boots on the ground, going through the crime scene. And he was hiking. He was for once in his life, he was doing good mental health stuff. He was going and seeing a therapist. He was hiking, he was doing it on his own. He was hiking with friends. He was backpacking, and he was hiking up here in Tahoe, and which is why like I spread his ashes where I did. He was it was middle of the day on the trail, and they started coming at him, all the faces and the bodies and the boots and the wheelchairs and everything. Like he said, he saw everything from October 1 again, and he got off the trail and he hitchhiked to his car and he drove home and he never hiked again. And then he was gone 9 months later. No, he was gone 6 months later, about 6 months later. And, but that is that, he never did that work. He never did anything for that work. And even like when, there was things that I was pushing him to do, even the therapist, he didn't want to do the therapist. And I'm like, therapy's so good. And, now looking back, it would have still been good, but you can't force somebody to do therapy either.
You can't force somebody to get the help that they desperately need when it's too hard for them to see how desperately they need it.
Right. It's the same thing as you can't change somebody. You can't make somebody love you. You can't make yourself love somebody. You can't make somebody see a therapist and actually heal if they're not going to do the work, because I know firsthand experience, you can see a therapist and pay all that money. If you don't do the work, there's zero reason to be here. There's zero, you're wasting their time and your time. It's a two-step process. It's showing up and then doing the work when you're not sitting on that couch.
Doing the work even when you don't want to do the work.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You go to
That's
work
when you got to do it.
Yeah. You go to work when you don't want to because you got to pay the bills.
Right.
Right. So do the work even when you don't want to, because that's paying yourself.
Yep.
And that's priceless.
It's a forever gift.
Yes.
Ever and ever.
We're running out of time. So let's just say that our next conversation we're going to have, let's find a significant other of somebody who has lost a first responder to suicide and have that honest conversation. So whoever that is, if anybody's listening to this one, if you are interested in being that person to have that open conversation with us, because it's going to hurt, because we're going to be like, no, but yes, it is that. And I'm sorry that it comes off that way. That's not what we mean. But that's how it helps us understand what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Because ultimately we don't intend to hurt you. We're learning to open up too.
Yep. And I think and just because all this is for helping everybody, right?
Yes.
But people who see our conversations and hear our raw talks about how we lost our first responders to suicide, and now first responder could see that and go, it could change their mindset of how they're dealing with things, to be able to hopefully go to their significant other and go, we need to have a talk. We need to have a hard talk. And this has been heavy. And then I listen to this. Can we listen to this together? And that's ultimately what we want to do. So
right.
If you're that other significant other out there, I will tell you right now, Ryan will be absolutely not. Maybe in 3 years he might, but not right now.
I don't know if I don't know that I want what Matt to. No, I'm kidding.
I don't know if I could sit here
would.
and ask Matt or Ryan questions. I don't think I could honestly be hey, let's
I think
talk,
it
Ryan.
should be somebody that we do not have a personal relationship with.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a friend's significant other, that's fine. But sorry, Matt and Ryan, it's not going to happen.
No, you're not going to be welcome.
One day,
yeah.
One day when we learn to communicate properly, let's have that conversation then.
Yeah. when all the tools have come together.
Right.
And they're working properly.
Yeah.
Fully charged batteries.
So we'll see you in about 20 years. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
Who knows? No.
It's a work in progress.
No, because I don't want it to be. That's a personal conversation to have.
Yeah.
When it's somebody that you're personally involved with.
Right.
But having that conversation with a significant other of somebody else who feels unsure and where to step and how to approach things, that's who we want to have on.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, they learn too.
Yes.
And there's so many conversations that aren't had.
Yes.
Being in a relationship with, and I hate to say it like this, but people like us, there's so many conversations that need to be had, but aren't had because they're so unsure of how to address it.
Right.
And so we could talk about it and get it out there and open floodgates for all kinds of people and things and life, because there is so much more to life after losing our loved ones.
There is. And there's beauty even in the past. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can be a hot mess, but hot opens the pores.
Yes. And it grows grass.
Yes.
It grows grass.
It grows my dandelions beautifully.
And it gives me a nice tan.
That's right. That's right. All right, everybody, thank you for coming on. We will see you guys on our next episode with a significant other of who to be determined.
Yes.
And welcome aboard, Ciara. This is going to be great.
Thanks, Christy. Love it.
Good. All right. Have a good evening, guys.
You too.